I'm Natasha Kaufman, and welcome to my podcast, Don't Just Talk, Say Something, Lessons on 20 Years of Business. Over the past 2 decades of running my public relations firm, NKPR, I'm so grateful to have met, worked with, and learned from so many talented industry leaders. And I'm so excited to be able to share their stories and life lessons with all of you on this podcast. It's an honor and a privilege to sit down with this episode's guest, Dax Dasilva, one of the most innovative and accomplished entrepreneurs in the world. Dax is the Executive Chair of Lightspeed, one of Canada's biggest success stories, and the founder of Age of Union, a non-profit environmental alliance to protect the planet's threatened species and ecosystems. Dax and I started working together 6 years ago, and he is a huge inspiration to me, not only for his business acumen, but for his deep commitment to making the world a better place. Today we discuss how philanthropy is integral to his journey and how anyone can be a changemaker. Here's our conversation. You know, this podcast, Dax, is very much around our 20th anniversary and all the incredible people that have helped us sort of get to where we are, and some of the lessons learned on our way there. And one of the things that really comes to mind for me over the last 20 years is there's no way I could be in business and do what I'm doing over the last 20 years if it wasn't for the fact that philanthropy and giving back was always so important in respect to what we do and the people that we partner with. And so when I look at your career and your career trajectory, I mean, you're one of the most successful businessmen out there, I think, globally. 2 IPOs, one in Toronto, one on the Toronto Stock Exchange, New York Stock Exchange, Lightspeed, truly, I think is a household name out there, on a global level. One of the most successful businesses out there, and you're the founder, and you've really sort of led the company. I wanted to kind of dig deep into philanthropy. Age of Union is a book that you wrote a couple of years back. Can you take us on this journey of when you started your company, and then when did you feel that cause and giving back to the world was just as important?
Yeah, happy to be here and to have this discussion. Yeah, so the company started in 2005, and there in the company itself, because we power those local neighborhood businesses in retail and hospitality. There's a great mission, a societal good that the company does. We provide technology. A technology competitive advantage and edge when your local businesses go up against the Amazons and the big box chains and the e-com giants, and so we're really giving, we're really making sure that communities can thrive, and that local has technology, So there's always been, I think, a really great that to rally our people, that we're doing something very positive that we can actually really see when we go door to door and be proud of, and to see our community members businesses thrive with our help. But I think as the company grew, I was able to buy real estate before we had investors, and so my first foray into giving back in sort of a more organized way was turning a former Lightspeed office into a gallery called Never Apart, and that we just wrapped. We closed, but it was 6 years of highlighting art from emerging artists in first the LGBTQ community, which I'm a part of, but then all areas of marginalized or voices that didn't have the opportunity to express themselves through art, and to actually build bridges between different communities that would never ordinarily display in the same space. So it was really a way to use culture to connect people and have people gather, and to create unity, and that was my first nonprofit, and really the manifesto for Never Apart. initially the original manifesto had so much in its message about nature, you
Mhm.
know, and so it's that manifesto for, of course, Never Part became a very sort of art oriented, social, social cohesion, social union sort of, ethos. But really, the core manifesto was a lot about our place and our struggle to be in harmony again with nature. And so from that, from that early experience with creating a nonprofit, and having that manifesto, that became the book Age of Union. So Age of Union became like the full writing of that manifesto. And so it takes us through pillars of leadership, culture, spirituality, and nature, the toolkit for being a change maker. But ultimately, that last pillar of nature is like, how do we come together and bring together what we're capable of as humans, and try to truly have our union and reconnection with nature, and move forward on the planet in a very different way. And so that was how that first nonprofit project spawned the book.
But it's interesting because you did the book, but did you know, like at the time that you wrote the book and we were launching the book, did you like know that at that moment that you want to, I mean, you just made a $40 million pledge
Mhm.
to initiatives to truly change the world. Did you know at that point that that was the next step, or was it, what was that process?
Yeah, so it's a really interesting. So now it's Age of Union Alliance, which we just launched in October of 2021. So 2 years later, 2 years after the book, and I think that it was it wasn't a uh, it wasn't pre-planned, but I think it's so organically came about because I knew that. Ever since I was a 16-year-old, 17-year-old protester, on Vancouver Island when they were clear cutting the old growth forests, and I was protesting, and I loved the environment, and wanted to fight for the environment from such a young age, being surrounded by the natural beauty of British Columbia where I grew up. That I knew that later in life, and that's why the manifesto for Never Apart was about how do we bring the best of what there is in humanity, and also have it be in harmony with the beauty that we have around us. And those things should not, our brilliance and the brilliance of nature, those things shouldn't result in destruction. Those things should be together in union. So I think that I've always known conservation work was in my future. And I think the book was the first time that I could have a platform to speak about much more than the leadership. Remember, there's the leadership piece, which I often talk about as founder of Lightspeed. There's the culture piece, which I had been starting to talk about a lot, in terms of Never Apart.
Mhm.
But it's the spirituality and the nature and what I mean by spirituality is how we all connected, and then not just us as people, but how we all connected, all life, all ecosystems. And so it's the book gave me a platform to really start to explore all of those things that I care so deeply about, and which I think are the elements of creating change, and empowering those individuals can make such impact. We see it time and time again, and so it's actually those individuals that we started to do Instagram lives with during COVID. And that's what started the alliance. So, during COVID, I said, we need to get this book out to as many people as possible. So we created a free ebook and a free audiobook. And to promote it, we started to have some of the environmentalists and conservationists that we'd been connecting with over time. And actually, there was a column, an environmental column in Never Apart's online magazine. So we called up, these change makers that we knew in conservation, and those were our first projects. As we learned more about them and learned more about the projects, and we saw that they really embodied this change maker profile, and that it wasn't just the work that was valuable. It was just the fact that everyday people could actually make such huge impacts that I thought would inspire people And so while it's all really great conservation work, it's actually the telling of the stories of these change makers that I think is really going to make the bigger difference, because everybody's going to feel like every single day is an opportunity for us to each make an impact in our own way, and to never ever say it's too late for our own home,
It's
this planet.
so it's so interesting what you're saying. Two things. One is that we all have the ability to be a change maker. And I thought what was so fascinating is that you kind of knew at the age of 16 that this was important to you. And I often think that we know as children
Yeah.
what we're meant to be and what we're meant to do. Like we know, but we don't know. And I think if we like sort of take a step back and sort of look at like what mattered to us then, that would actually help us to get on that path of what is really meaningful work for us. Tell me a little bit about the change maker piece, and what do you think, like why do you believe that every one of us has the opportunity and the ability and the capability to be a change maker?
I think if we were all thinking, if there's 8 billion people that were thinking for the greater good, and we're acting for the greater good instead of 8 billion individualists, we'd have a totally different situation. And so I think that what's amazing about humans is we're so unique, and so we can each bring something very unique to the table when it comes to making change. And there's no small or large act. I feel like there's it all matters. It all matters to do things with an intention. The effort of trying to think about a meal, like, because we do everything on autopilot. We consume, we transport ourselves, we do all of these things that are daily choices, and many of them have very little thought put into them. We just do what we do. And that's why I actually thought COVID was a really good opportunity to kind of step back and think about, okay, which of these things actually is aligned with having a better planet. Maybe I'm not giving up meat altogether, but I'm consciously reducing and exploring other ways to think about meals. And little by little, those small acts of change making, I think they're their own reward, to the degree that it becomes a part of who you are. And the circle of being a change maker grows and grows, and your impact can grow. And I feel like I kind of can relate with the journey of Lightspeed, the journey of Never Apart, the journey of Age of Union. I don't think I would have been ready to do Age of Union earlier in my life. I've learned things along the way, and my ability to impact changes evolved and grown. And so it's the scale is not the issue. It's that people have to start thinking this way.
It's so interesting what you just said about it's small changes that you make that actually contribute to the bigger picture. We're working with this client, Simple Feast, and they're a vegetarian vegan delivery service, basically out in California. And they were saying that they don't want, like, their target audience isn't the vegetarian or the vegan. Their target audience is the person that's sort of 60% vegetarian or vegan. Because if you're making the conscious choice of change, then that's actually who they want. And so, because ultimately, yes, they don't want people to eat meat, but the point is it's you're only going to be able to you're not converting the converted. You want to convert the people that are sort of halfway on their way.
100%.
Because the act of change, and actually I should introduce you to those guys because you would find them super interesting. But like halfway through is kind of what you want, because you want people to actually do the work, make that conscious decision. It's interesting with you because you're super successful, so accomplished. If you think about, let's say the last few years, what are you most proud of? Like, what are the things that come to mind that you're, sort of truly most proud of?
I think both of the IPO days, I think were, like, the one in Toronto, the one in New York, I think were very, very special moments for Lightspeed. I think moving into our headquarters, which we call the Castle in Montreal, was a major moment. for us. It's a landmark in Montreal that it had been abandoned. We were part of the revitalization of this whole area, and just such a so proud to have contributed to my adopted city, that inspired me so much, and that creativity birthed Lightspeed. So to be able to give back in that way. But I think more recently, it was just last week. Age of Union Alliance, from its $40 million pledged $4.5 million to Sea Shepherd, and Sea Shepherd is a very direct action group that's global, with actually a Canadian founder, Captain Paul Watson, who's a legend, and who I credit and will in history be credited as the changemaker who saved whales, not just one species, whales. For us and future generations of humans to learn about, because we don't understand how complex and intelligent in their societies, but now we'll have the chance to, and you see whales rebounding all over the world. And so we sponsored a ship, and it was named the Age of Union. And so we're filming a documentary about the work that they're doing to prevent the catching of dolphin, bycatch by fishermen with poor practices off the coast of France, and to boat up in a Zodiac, a smaller boat, up to the Age of Union, which is this massive 60 foot former Japanese research vessel that's now a Sea Shepherd vessel that carries out these missions. I think that was that was probably one of the most amazing moments of my life.
It's interesting to watch you talk about it. You're glowing, like you were so passionate about it. And I have to say, one of my proudest moments over the last 20 years is to have the opportunity, truly the privilege to work with you, but to know you. Like you are so inspiring, because there's so many leaders out there that lead and lead well, but you lead by example, and you're very much, you do the work, you put it in, and the fact that you have sort of taken this direction and you're all in. This isn't like you're sort of in and, this is a good thing to give back to. You're in, you are right there, learning, and teaching us while you're learning, so that we can be better for our planet. And that's like one of my biggest takeaways of having the privilege to know you, is I feel like I know so much more because of you. And so I'm extremely grateful for that. One of the questions that I had for you was, what do you think we've learned together? And I know for me, it's the fact that as you're learning, I get to be on that journey and learn with you, because there's so much about what you're doing I didn't know. And now I think twice, when it comes to giving back to the planet, or some of the decisions that and the choices that I make. But what do you think some of those learnings might be for you over the last 5 or 6 years that we've known each other?
Yeah, I think knowing you, knowing NKPR, the whole team, I think we've what I've learned is how do we now share these things that we're doing, and connect to people. How do we share that, and what is the best strategy to really touch people, to not just disseminate information, but because that communications piece is ultimately what's going to amplify change. And so that, I think, is something that we're still on that journey of learning from you, and we're still evolving it. And that's, I think, that's why it's been such a critical piece of and why you've been across all of my projects in so many ways. Is, I think, that's another thing that I think I've understood is, it's about people. It's about us understanding one another, and us understanding over time even more deeper and more deeply the actual goals and the actual objectives, and maybe there's potential that you see in something that we're doing, that because I'm too close to it, may not see. And so bringing that perspective to the comm strategy, and ultimately it's we're all here trying to change the world. for the better. And so how do we get it out to as many people as possible?
Yeah, it's so true. It's not about pushing out information. It's actually how are people how are they going to receive the information? And so I'm always thinking, not pushing it out, but how do we need to word things? How do we need to connect with people truly so that they receive it, versus just having it on their desk? And so I think that, and nowadays when we're, and I, this, like we have access to so much, which means we're also distracted. So how do we truly connect and unite one another? And I think that it often is a work in progress, but it's that problem I'm always trying to solve on a day-to-day basis is, if we're trying to, if the problem is X, how do we actually share that so that it feels like it's being retained, which I think is super important. I always like to end the podcast with, in all the years that we've known each other, is there something that you don't know about me that you want to ask me? Or like, what's the one question that you want to ask me that you might never have asked? And I've gotten some really funny, I've gotten some serious questions, and I've gotten some very funny questions. Like someone thought I was married 6 times, which I was not. But what would that question be?
It's like, is there actually a color section in your wardrobe? Because I have never seen evidence. It's
no.
It's all black. What's the hashtag? All black.
NK all black everything. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Which I love. I mean, I'm a huge fan of the ultimate color.
Black. Yeah. No color in my wardrobe. No color section in my wardrobe. Nope. I do put a little color in my shoes, maybe a little bit in my handbags, but definitely no color in my wardrobe. That's so funny. People are often shocked when if they look at my closet, they come to the house and they look at my closet and it's all black. They're like, oh, wow, you really do wear all black. I'm like, yeah. Not lying, no joke. Only NK all black everything. Dax, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for doing this with me and being on this journey with us. And I'm so proud of everything that you're doing, and keep going, keep doing all of this. It's definitely going to make a difference. I've always said that I want to leave the world a better place than I came into it. And with people like you, that's definitely what's going to happen. So thank you.
Thank you. And I feel like our journey is just beginning.
Thank you, Dax, for sharing your wisdom with all of us. And thank you all for listening to the podcast. I always love hearing from you. Feel free to DM me at Natasha NKPR. And don't forget to subscribe, share, and leave a review and rating. Until next time.